And hello, Jets fans, and a very happy festive is the greatest television holiday ever created. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. Wanted to jump on to do a quick episode before the holiday season. I know a lot of you might be busy, and I figured that Christmas Eve would be tough. I know we usually do the weekend preview before on Fridays, but given the holiday season, I decided to come on a little bit earlier and try to make it a little bit different too, because I also thought this would be a good platform for you guys to basically vent and talk about all the ways and air your grievances that the Jets have disappointed you over the past year. Is it a certain player? Is it a certain part of the season that's really disappointed you? So again, I thought this would be a fun way to do it. I apologize for my voice today. I've just been, I've for some reason I've been losing my voice this week, and I'm going to do my best to keep it throughout this broadcast. But it's been a tough week for the old vocal cords. But again, if you're new and haven't been watching the Jets this week, the Jets have been decimated once again, but this time by negative COVID tests, as according to the Jets, they have had 15 positive tests, including Robert Saleh. Now, again, some of these guys, because they're vaccinated, could potentially be back for the game Sunday. But again, not looking great for the New York Jets, a team that was already incredibly thin. I mean, thin is like being gracious. I mean, I was looking at this today. This is the Jets safeties. Marcus May IR, Lamarcus Joyner IR, and Ashton Davis with COVID. Elijah Riley concussion, probably won't play. Sharon Niesman COVID. Will Parks claimed off waivers yesterday, and Elijah Benton signed to the practice squad 2 weeks ago. So the Jets safeties are basically guys that they are now almost just picking up on the street to play potentially this Sunday against the Jaguars. And if you were here for the last episode when I was recapping the game on Monday, I felt that this was a game the Jets had to win. I thought this was a game the Jets should win. Now, of course, there have been talks that the NFL has potentially thought about potentially postponing or moving the game. As of this recording, that hasn't happened yet. But for the Jets, all of a sudden, like the priorities have shifted for this Jet team. And all of a sudden, it's kind of weird because you never want to see this team lose this game. But if this team loses a Sunday against the Jaguars, I don't think it's as bad as it was beforehand. Of course, you want to see Zach Wilson do well, but we're talking about potential situation now with Elijah Vera Tucker now out, that the left side of the offensive line, if George Fant can't go, is basically going to be an AAF XFL offensive line on the left side with Dan Feeney and McDermott on the left side, which is terrifying in its own right. And you're looking at the guys that are out, Elijah Moore with COVID. I mean, this is just killed the Jets right now. It is just going through this locker room rampantly. And again, we were talking about a team that had the most players on their cap on the IR, and now you're talking about COVID going through. I mean, like, I don't even know who's going to suit up at this point for the Jets on Sunday. It's going to be something. And again, like when coming into this game, I think you're going to need some context. Like if this Jet team all of a sudden, now a lot can change between now and Sunday, but if a lot of these players test negatively and are able to play, that should help. But again, we've also seen with COVID, a lot of the guys that do come back after having COVID they aren't themselves. They're not 100% right away. They're a little bit sluggish. They're a little bit slow. You're probably like 80% of themselves. So even if you got like John Franklin Myers back, even got some of these guys, like don't expect them to be at their peak. So it's tough because the Jets should beat the Jaguars. This is a game where, they were favored at the beginning of the week. Sorry about that. Favored at the beginning of the week. But now with COVID, who knows? And like I said, I mean, they're basically picking guys off the street right now to fill the practice squad. And I don't even know who's going to start on the offensive line. You don't know. I mean, Zach Wilson's voice, but again, Robert Saleh isn't even going to be out there potentially too. Sorry, my throat is just killing me this week, guys. I think I've been doing too much talking or too much ranting. But again, I thought we'd do this episode a little bit differently because it's kind of hard to preview a team where 15 players, because of the coronavirus, it's kind of hard to preview a game where there's so much unknown, and we're probably not going to know until basically Sunday who plays. And even if the Jets do get a lot of these guys back from the COVID list, probably not going to be 100%. So, and especially if Sal doesn't coach, it's going to be something. Nick Chaplin in the chat. Once again, guys, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And of course, would love to hear your grievances in the chat. Would love to hear what you guys think. We should have had a help wanted request on Craigslist saying we were looking for football players ready for action. We paid $10 an hour. Hey, that's not bad marketing slogan, Nick. I mean, I could see that. I mean, it's almost like we're getting to the point where they're going to have like the invincible Vince Papale tryouts at MetLife this weekend, basically just trying to find anyone like, hey, did you play safety in high school or college? Well, we'll give you a tryout, see if you can play this weekend for the Jets. I mean, that's just how the roster is. And unfortunately, it's one of the weird things about the NFL the last 2 years. Like, this is no one's fault. This is like even teams like you see the Browns. I mean, the Browns are probably the most deep team in the NFL, and they were highly impacted Monday. And the Jets have all these injuries. They don't have all these pieces, and it's going to be frustrating. And it's hard because like I really was thinking about coming into this episode, like thinking to do a preview. And of course, like the big matchup, Zach Wilson versus Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence struggling. And I think Zach Wilson's played better than Trevor Lawrence this year, and all the rookies struggling. Like you saw Justin Fields this week, but then it's kind of hard to preview it when you don't even know who's going to play this week. I mean, yesterday, Jets had 15 guys on the list. And as this is recording, we don't have any more positive tests, but who knows? Joe Champion, good to see you, Joe. Tank for Thibodeau sounds good. Like, again, this is such a hard thing where the Jets are right now, because I get where there's a big portion of the fan base that wants to tank. And to be fair, I really love Hutchinson. I love Thibodeau. I think they're very good players, but to me, they're not a Bosa and they're not a Chase Young. I mean, they're below that. They're good pass rushers. They're clearly the best players in this draft, but are they potentially franchise altering? I'm not sure about that yet, but they're going to be very good. I mean, it's a weird thing because I do think that if the Jets lose this game, that there's going to be a lot of people killing the Jets. There's going to be a lot of people saying that, oh, they can't even beat the Jaguars, despite the fact that most of the Jet roster could potentially not be playing because of COVID. I just feel like this team, you want some positive direction going into next season, because I don't think you're not going to beat the Bucks. You're probably not going to beat the Bills unless they send anyone. And that's going to be very interesting week 18. And I've been shifting a little bit because I've been saying that the game the Jets could potentially win. And I actually really think it's going to be even more prevalent for the Jets, because I have now a new kind of theory with week 18 with a lot of these teams is if New England beats Buffalo this weekend, they'll be up 2 games. They'll have the season tiebreaker 2 games. So they could basically clinch almost, I think, the AFC East, or pretty much have it wrapped up. And if that's the case, and Buffalo knows they're a wild card team, I'm very curious to see how teams are going to approach week 18, not only to rest players, but because of how COVID has been spreading through the NFL and how it's been an issue the last 2 weeks. Is a situation where basically the Bills go into week 18 and go, okay, we're not only not playing our players, but we're going to quarantine like Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, our really big players, to help make sure that they're ready to go for the postseason. I mean, that's something that I do think has to be considered, especially with everything going on. So, I mean, I think there's a chance that maybe the Jets can beat Buffalo in week 18, but still, you'd like to see a win. You'd like to see them be able to compete. Nick Bosa 60 cents. All right, no way. Or we should draft these guys. It's an unknown quality. Like, again, like it's exciting to talk about that. And again, I've talked about this ad nauseum too, and I've gotten some disagreements in the chat, but I almost feel like the Jets in some regards, I know it's not the sexiest pick, but if they can end up with Evan Neal with one of their top picks, I do think that would be great, just because I do think he's going to be a great left tackle in the NFL. He's a huge guy, but he's had no durability issues. He's been able to stay healthy. And given Mekhi Becton's injury history, I would move Mekhi Becton to right tackle, put Neal at left tackle. You've really improved your tackles. And again, like, you need Zach Wilson to work. But I get it, Jeff fans. It's frustrating. And like, but again, it's hard to do a preview because I don't even know who's going to suit up. And I feel bad for Zach Wilson. I mean, who's even going to play for him this weekend? I mean, the Jaguars, as of now, don't have any COVID tests. They seem to be pretty healthy. I mean, at the end of last weekend, I did feel like the Jets should have won this game. I did think that they should have won this game against the Jaguars. But now with all the COVID tests, with everyone out, now, of course, they're saying Jamison Crowder could be out with a calf injury. I mean, who's going to be freaking playing? If Crowder's out, who are the number? It's going to be Keelan Cole and Braxton Berrios. It's like, it's crazy. But I think that's a good segue, too, because today I was mixing up a little bit. I'm going to air grievances today. I mean, it's Festivus. I mean, it's the best Seinfeld holiday ever created. And, like, I want to start, too, with, like, let's talk about ways and certain players that have disappointed you over the past year. And to me, there has been no bigger disappointment. And let's stick with the wide receiver room than Denzel Mims. And, man, like, he has just been a huge disappointment to Jet fans. And let me know in the chat if you agree or if there's any other Jet players that have really disappointed you. And, like, before I know – I'm going to say this before I know it's tempting, but like, can we give Zach Wilson a break? He is a rookie. So, I mean, I would give Zach Wilson a little bit of a break, but Denzel Mims came in this season and basically the fan base loved him. And when he didn't play the first couple of weeks, there was almost like a revolt with the Jet fans, basically saying, how is Denzel Mims not playing? Well, look where we are now. Even when he gets on the field, can't catch the football, creating mostly penalties. And it's got to the point where he probably had the most goodwill of any Jet player on this team. And now, if you ask most Jet fans, they're probably like, seventh round pick. That's fine. We'll trade him. Like, I just feel like Mims is going to get traded at the end of this year. I just feel like he just needs a change of scenery. It just feels like one of those situations where the player doesn't fit the scheme. It hasn't gone well with the coaching staff. It's just not working. It's just not working. And, it's just one of those things where you look at Mims and you go, you see the talent, but he just can't seem to get it together. He just can't seem to get the system. And again, we're talking about a guy like late in the season, like he's getting penalized for not being able to line up correctly. I mean, kids in youth football are not getting penalized for that. So, I mean, to me, he's been a huge disappointment this season. I mean, the season in general, I think it's been a disappointment, but it's been understandable. I mean, there's been other players that to me have been a disappointment as well. I think one player in particular to me has been, just the kicking game in general. Can I just say that a position? I mean, until Eddie Pinero, I mean, this kicking game was absolutely horrendous, and this kicking team can't get anything done. They can't even, at one point, we couldn't even kick extra points. Nick Chaplin, Denzel Mims was a huge disappointment. So the difference a year makes when he was catching for Flacco. With Denzel Mims, it's all mental. I think that too. But I do think Nick Parfit's physical because, again, he had the injury last year. He had the food poisoning this year. Then he got nicked up in camp again. And then he had COVID, I think, 2 weeks ago, or he had something 2 weeks ago. It's just not working. And sometimes players just don't fit. Sometimes they just need a change of scenery. And really, I think that's what Mims needs. I mean, I just feel like he just needs a fresh start. He needs to go a new place. But again, guys, if you have grievances, this is our airing of them this year. Would love to hear from you what you think about how you would air your grievances, your thoughts this year. I mean, I've talked about Denzel Mims being a disappointment. I mean, Jeff Olberg being a disappointment over the last couple of weeks and calling the plays and how this defense can't even sell out for the run. I mean, it's been bad. And I mean, I guess another disappointment, not to his own fault, has been Carl Lawson just because he can't get on the field because of that Achilles injury. I mean, he was probably going to be Nate John. I know, bring on the COVID the week. Great time, lost the Jaguars. What this team needs. Yeah, I mean, Nate is like, I do think that there is, if I had to guess right now, it's probably a 50-50 split on the Jet fan base where we're at the point this year where half the fan base wants the team to lose to get a better draft pick. Half of them just wants to get a win for momentum next year and just to win. But again, I do think it helps stomach a Jaguars loss. Like they never make excuses in the NFL, but if this team is as decimated as it is with coronavirus, and they're literally plucking guys off the street just to fill the void and play this game. I mean, I'll be more even if this Jet team loses by like a field goal, but they play well despite basically with like half replacement players. I do think people will feel better. I just don't want them to get blown out and embarrassed by Trevor Lawrence. I just don't want that to happen. Mims doesn't fit the offense. He was drafted for Gase. Joe, me and you share brand. I've been saying that for day one, and I was kind of curious about. I mean, I almost felt like the second this team drafted Elijah Moore, that Denzel Mims' days were numbered because I mean the Jets realistically felt they got a high-end first-round player with him. I mean, Denzel Mims is kind of like, okay, he's got some talent, but we got to hope that it works out. And you saw in camp too, Elijah Moore just looked different. And when he's on the field, he just looks different. Biggest disappointment for me, Corey Davis paid and told he was a one, place like a poor receiver two. I can get that frustration. To be fair, though, he's not really paid like a one. I mean, you look at his contract, it is high for a receiver, but when you see what a lot of these really true number ones are making, he's not getting really paid as a number one. It's really a 2-year contract. So the Jets can't get out of it after next season. And again, I do think Davis has been a bit of a disappointment, especially because when you saw him in training camp and then those preseason games really connecting with Zach Wilson. You're like, okay, this is going to be really fun this year. And then it just didn't work out. And again, I do think Corey Davis, he's going to be a big part of this team next year. Hopefully he can get healthy. But again, he's got to work on the drops. And realistically, the Jets can somehow add a number one. I mean, Davis is a very good number two receiver. I mean, he does have value. And I mean, it was a disappointing year, though. And I do think, unfortunately for him, by the time Elijah Moore started to get going and could have maybe helped him get a little bit more over and shift the coverages away from him, unfortunately, that's when he got hurt. So, I mean, basically, it's been a season of unfortunate events. If I had to describe the Jets in the novel, it's a series of unfortunate events. Croft, a big disappointment. I don't know when he played the season. Yeah, he got injured early, but again, Nick, like Croft to me, I mean, I didn't have really big expectations for him, though. I mean, this wasn't like they brought in a guy who last year had 40, 50 catches as a tight end and you were expecting him to be a starting tight end. I mean, if I'm more disappointed, it's been the tight end room because when we came into this training camp, I do think there was some hope that you'd either have Croft play above his head and develop, but he got hurt. I mean, Ryan Griffin, who's now out for the season, so another target for freaking Zach Wilson out. So again, now he's out as number one, number two receivers and top 2 10s just for good measure. I mean, Nick, to me, it's been the whole tight end room. I mean, Yeboah was a guy who I'm going to start from the bottom of that chart, but Yeboah was someone I think a lot of Jet fans were hoping could develop. And again, he still could. I mean, he's on the practice squad but I do think that he can maybe be a player on this team next year as a role player. To me, Chris Herndon, I mean, again, Chris Herndon has been alleviated because the Jets got an unbelievable trade where they got a 4th-round pick for him. So I think a lot of Jet fans were like, good riddance and great. But again, coming into this season, you were hoping that Herndon could look like he did his rookie year, hope he could reconnect some of that magic. And again, you were hoping that Herndon could look like a viable tight end. Because again, if Herndon looked like a viable tight end, then that would be one of the big things. Because this year about the Jets has really been about eliminating the unknowns and the questions. Who's going to be a player on this team? Like, what role will they have? I think John Franklin Myers has put a role. Quincy Williams has made himself a role. These young corners have made a role. But I do think a lot of the Jets front office was really hoping that Chris Herndon would establish himself in camp and really do a nice job and become a guy who they could rely on. So it's another position they didn't have to address, but now they do. So I think that's been a disappointment. Never getting sucked in by another preseason. I mean, the preseason is never get sucked in too much. It's nice to see some flashes, but again, it is the preseason. Barrios, my biggest and best surprise. And yeah, I do feel bad for Barrios because I know Jets made the Pro Bowl this year. personally, I think that was going to be a stretch. I do think Quinnen should have been considered, although now with his injury the last 2 weeks, he has not played the same. And I do think Barrios should have made it because he does lead in kick return and punt return average as a special teamer. But again, just because there's no Jets now, maybe one or two sneaks in as a replacement player. But again, no Pro Bowlers. I guess that's another airing of grievances. The Jets going to have another Pro Bowler this year. So another way the Jets have disappointed us in the fan base. Quincy Williams on defense. Yeah, he's been a really nice surprise. And again, I have to give Joe Douglas credit. I mean, there's a lot of things I've liked Joe Douglas that he's done, but I guess the biggest disappointment is that his two biggest free agent signings aren't going to finish the season with the team. And really, to me, Carl Lawson was the bigger one over Corey Davis, and the fact that he got his Achilles injured in camp. It's just, I mean, that to me was frustrating. And again, that kind of was like the first domino to fall in the season where it was like, okay, the Jets have lost their best defensive player, their most highly paid defensive player, and probably their best pass rusher, and they haven't even played a regular season snap. This is going to be fun. So, yeah, not great. I guess another disappointment, too, has been the medicals this year, is that the Jets can't stay healthy. I mean, could a grievance be the freaking MetLife turf? I know that over the last 2 years has caused speculation for injury. Personally, I have no idea. But again, who knows? It's just another thing that works against the New York Jets. And I mean, again, we're here to air our grievances today. I mean, we've already talked about Denzel Mims. I mean, I wouldn't talk about Zach Wilson again. Still a rookie, still a long way to go. I'm not going to kill the kid. And especially with this weekend coming up, I do think I saw like people saying, I want us to throw 300 yards against the Jaguars. Okay, Jaguars are terrible, but I'm looking right now and I'm going, okay, Crowder could be out with a quad. Moore's out. Davis is out. So it's probably going to be Barrios, Keelan Cole, and Vincent Smith and Denzel Mims because they just don't have enough bodies. It's just crazy. Safety position, though, somewhat a tad lower than the other position group. Hopefully next year they address. Like safeties, Carlos is a tough one because, again, I don't think the safeties were bad. And I think if you want a disappointment could be Ashton Davis. I don't think Ashton Davis is a weird player for the Jets where you see moments where you're like, okay, he looks good. And then you see some other times where he just can't tackle and it just makes you want to pull your freaking hair out. But again, Marcus May was playing well until he got hurt. I think that's a big disappointment. I mean, Joyner got hurt. And again, like Carlos, who were just joining us, I mean, I was talking about earlier, like, I was looking on Twitter today and I found this great thing about like the Jets safeties, basically like where they currently are. I'm going to see if I can pull it up again, like where their state of the Jets safeties are. And it's pretty freaking incredible when you really think about where the Jets safety position is right now, just because of all the losses, because of all the injuries. But again, it was basically, to paraphrase, I'm just trying to see if I can find it again. So again, they're talking about playing Jason Pinnock at safety this week, who's a corner, because of Elijah Riley's in the concussion protocol from last week. And Riley's been a nice player, but again, after last week's injury, thank God he's okay. But Elijah Riley's probably not going to play with concussion. Ashton Davis is COVID. Your top two starters are basically on IR. And I think the fifth safety was just signed to the last two safeties, one was just signed to the practice squad a week ago. And they're talking about playing Jason Pinnock at safety. I mean, that's how thin the safety position is right now. It's absolutely incredible. Did you hear? They're not moving to London. That's just a rumor. The only team that's ever going to move to, personally, I don't think a team's ever going to move to London. The only team that's going to move to London is the Jaguars, just to make money. And I mean, they play a game there every year to make money. Like that's one thing I always want to rant about. Like everyone's like, oh, the Jaguars are a better spot for Trevor Lawrence. Really, not the number one media market in the world. And a team that has to literally go to London every year in the National Football League where they print money as franchises. And the Jaguars have to go to freaking London in order to make some money because they can't get fans at their home. I mean, that's just crazy. What's your read on who will play the slot? Elijah looks best where he plays there. Barris is a fine option. Crowder's going to be gone. I think Elijah, the nice thing is he can play slot. He can move around. He can basically do all the things you want to do. The big thing is who's they get in free agency or in the draft. I mean, if they can go somehow swing for an Allen Robinson, if they can back up a Brinks chunk for Devontae Adams, that moves it. That helps too. But again, Elijah Moore, one of the things that I really appreciate too is not only the fact that he looks amazing in the slot, but that he's proven he can play on the outside despite his smaller size. So to me, he's really increased his value and increased his versatility because he can do a little bit of everything. He can move in, he can move out. And of course, Carlos anytime. Will they keep trying to play Elijah outside to give Barrios more snaps? In the perfect world, no, because you would hope. I mean, I like Barrios a lot, but you would hope that you get a better receiver than Braxton Berrios is in your top 3 rotations. So I think that you're going to see them go hard after receiver, whether it's the draft, because again, Seattle with the 8th pick is another loss. And again, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I had some fun Twitter at the handle Rich Sports Talk. We were on Twitter, and I had some fun tweeting after the Seattle game, especially about certain ex-Jets who, thought life would be greener on the other side, potentially. So some funny tweets in there, especially a good one about life coming at you fast. So that was a lot of fun. But again, like I think the Jets are Barrios to me has a role in this team. It's special teams and backup slot. Like if you need to take a guy off the field for a couple plays to play the slot, like that's what he is. But if you want to be your starting slot, in some ways that's a bit concerning just because I do think that he's a good receiver, but he's not an elite receiver. So again, guys, any other questions for the chat? I know it's been a crazy week. Jets, of course, getting killed this week on the like how many buys they're going to have this week. And again, I wanted to do a preview, but it's kind of hard to do a preview when you don't even know who's going to play this week, and when half the roster looks like they might not even play, and the head coach might not even be there. So I know, Nate. That's very true. But again, I mean, you trying to be positive and look forward. The Jets have 2 first-round picks, 2 in the top 10. And now with the Panthers losing again, they're going to have right now. The 2 second-round picks are in the top 30s or in the top 40. Basically, they're like I think 37, 39, and then they're basically going to have 5 top 70 picks. So, I mean, hopefully expedite the rebuild. And that's what you're hoping for is the Jets. And again, like I think we've reached a critical point in the season where a lot of people, it's funny too, like personally, my personal opinion is I want the Jets to win as many games as possible. I think winning helps more, and you want Zach Wilson to play well to make it more attractive and be more of a selling point for potential free agents this offseason. But again, how's that going to happen this week if he's not going to have half of his team out there? So, again, I just think it's going to be interesting to see how the Jets finish this year. I personally want to see them win, but I can understand why some of the fan base wants to see them lose out and get a higher draft pick. And I mean, I get it, but personally, I would like to see them win. If there's a good deal, he goes to the Giants. I don't see that happening. I think if Russell goes anywhere, it's the Saints or the Broncos. I think those 2 teams have more draft capital. They're more ready to win now. And Russell wants to win now. I think the only reason he put the Giants is just for CR. I mean, even the Giants, the Giants are in such cap hell. How are they going to do it? I mean, literally, the Giants are reworking contracts right now so they can fill out their roster. That's how tight they are on the cap. And he has one of the top 4 cap hits in the NFL. Like, they're going to have to get rid of like half the roster just to almost bring in Russ. So, if the Giants are going to deal for a quarterback, I actually think it's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo. Because I do think you could get Garoppolo potentially from the 49ers, and I don't think it would cost them as much. And again, he has a better cap number than Wilson. Like I just don't see that. Like even if they trade those draft picks, I mean, they get Russell Wilson, but they're going to have to cut. The Giants aren't a good roster right now. They're going to have to cut a lot of guys just to make the Russell Wilson contract work. So I mean, even the Giants, like okay, they have some good players, but I don't think they have a great offensive line. I mean, their defense is okay. Giants are definitely in the conversation. I would still think the Jaguars are the worst team in the NFL or the Texans. The Lions are a weird team. I know they have the worst record, but again, I think they play harder. I just think that Jaguars and Texans are more of a mess, especially in the organization. Um, he looks awful, but again, guys, I think we're getting on Wilson too much. Again, that offense is really old school. They don't have any innovation. Like he's been asking for more innovative offensive coaching, and it doesn't help too. Where I do think he rushed back from that surgery. I mean, we're talking about a guy that had like his finger surgically replaced, and it wasn't right. And I still don't think it's right. I think he rushed back, and he's just not healthy. I think he needs a full off season to get healthy. Like if I'm almost the Seahawks at this point, since they're under 500, I know there's still a slim chance they can get in the postseason. But if I was the Seahawks, I would just shut Wilson down. It's a lost season. You're not going to make a run at this point. Just keep him healthy and just let him get an early start on the recovery process. I mean, it's a lost season. I would just shut him down for the season, but that's my personal opinion. So, all right, guys. Any other questions before we head out for today? I'm just going to keep this short and sweet. I know a lot of you guys probably have holiday plans, last minute Christmas shopping. So won't keep you too long today. I appreciate you guys of this holiday season. Hope you guys have a lot of fun. And of course, we'll be back on Monday at 10 o'clock to talk about the Jets Jaguars game, recapping that matchup and talking about breaking down Zach Wilson versus Trevor Lawrence. And funnily enough, just seeing who actually played in the game. I mean, that's going to be the fun part for this Jet game is going to be who actually plays. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Have a happy holidays. This is Rich Sports Talk. Thank you so much.